My name is Claire, and I'm 53 years old. It was supposed to be a day of joy. Grandpa turned 80 that Saturday, and nearly the entire family came together. Even cousins I hadn't seen in over a decade showed up with wide smiles and plastic hugs. The backyard was decorated with golden balloons, a huge white tent, and more food than a wedding. Grandpa sat like a king on his favorite wooden chair, a wool blanket draped over his knees, his eyes tired but proud. Then my husband, Daniel, leaned toward me, his lips barely brushing my ear. We need to leave. Now, something is very, very wrong. My stomach clenched. What are you talking about? I whispered back. He didn't answer, just looked across the crowd toward the old barn at the edge of the property. That barn, it had been locked for years, ever since Grandma died. No one went near it. No one talked about it. But as I followed Daniel's gaze, I saw someone slip inside through the side door. Someone I hadn't noticed before. A man in a black suit. No one else seemed to see him. Daniel's grip on my hand tightened. We should never have come, he muttered. But it's Grandpa's birthday. Exactly, he said, his voice low. That's why it's happening now. I didn't know what it was, but I knew Daniel. And when his voice trembled like that, it meant danger. The music kept playing, people kept laughing, but I felt it in my chest. A quiet crack spreading like ice under my ribs. The house belonged to Grandpa since before I was born. White walls now cracked with age, a porch swing that moaned with every gust of wind, and that old oak tree in the front yard, twisted, gnarled, like it had seen things no one dared speak of. Inside, the walls were lined with portraits, generations of stern faces and tired eyes. There was one photo missing, a space left blank on purpose. I always wondered why, but Grandpa never spoke of it. My cousin Olivia brought a fruit salad no one touched. She was always the one who tried too hard. Aunt May stood by the punch bowl like she was guarding treasure. And Uncle Roy? He hadn't said a word all afternoon, just stared at the barn, same as Daniel. Do you know him? I asked Daniel, pointing discreetly to the man in the black suit, now standing by the fence. Daniel nodded. I met him once, 15 years ago, at a bank. A bank? Daniel turned to me, voice barely a whisper. He's not a banker, not really. He offers loans, quiet ones, big ones. No paperwork, no forgiveness. My heart sank. You took a loan from him? Daniel didn't answer. Instead, he pulled me behind the tent, away from the crowd. He's not here for me, he said. He's here for someone else. I just don't know who. The wind picked up. From the barn came a sound, like a door slamming shut, but no one turned. No one noticed, except Grandpa, whose eyes locked with mine across the lawn. He shook his head, almost pleading, and then, for the first time in 20 years, he stood. Grandpa didn't walk anymore, not since the stroke. At least, that's what we believed. But there he was, slow, trembling, but upright. The blanket dropped to the ground as he stepped away from his chair, ignoring the shouts of concern. He walked straight toward the barn. Conversations died mid-sentence. Chairs scraped, people froze. Even the kids stopped running. What's going on? Olivia asked me, her voice tight. I don't know. But I did. Deep down, I knew this wasn't just a birthday. This was a reckoning. Daniel grabbed my wrist. If he's going in there, then it's already started. What has started? He looked around, making sure no one was listening. Your grandfather made a deal. A long time ago. Right after your grandma died. I only found out years later, during an investment meeting. With that man? Daniel nodded. He offered Grandpa a second chance. Enough money to keep the house, pay off debts, keep the family together. But we were never rich, because the loan wasn't money, Claire. He looked at me, eyes dark. It was time. I didn't understand, but I followed. The barn door creaked as Grandpa pulled it open. Dust spilled out, and the light inside flickered, though there was no electricity in there. The man in black waited, standing beside something large and covered by a cloth. Grandpa's voice broke the silence. "I'm here," he said. "You've had your fun. Let's finish this." "Wait, Grandpa, what are you doing?" I cried out. He turned to me. "You were never supposed to see this." The man smiled. "But now that she has, she's part of it." The man in black pulled the cloth away. Beneath it stood a tall mirror. No frame, no backing, just glass that shimmered like water. Grandpa's reflection didn't match his body. In the glass, he was young, strong, but his eyes, they were hollow. "This is where it ends," Grandpa said, stepping closer. "No," Daniel interrupted. "You don't have to go through with it." The man turned toward Daniel. "You forfeited your right to speak when you walked away from your own deal." I stared at my husband. "You too?" Daniel didn't answer, just lowered his head. Grandpa looked back at me. "I made a bargain to protect this family. You were all falling apart. The farm was gone. The banks were circling. Your parents were on the verge of divorce. I gave him 20 years of peace in exchange for my time. And what happens now?" He didn't answer. The man in black stepped forward. "Now, he comes with me. That was the agreement. No heirs, no negotiations. I'm not letting you take him," I said, stepping in front of Grandpa. "Claire," he whispered, "this is the price. All blessings carry a weight. Remember what the good book says? What shall it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul?" Tears filled my eyes. There has to be another way. The mirror pulsed. A soft hum filled the barn. The glass shimmered with movement, like something waited on the other side. The man extended a hand toward Grandpa, and then Daniel stepped between them. "No," he said, "take me instead." The air stopped. Even the dust seemed frozen mid-fall. The man looked amused. "It doesn't work like that." But Grandpa smiled. "Maybe it does now." The mirror pulsed again, brighter, louder, and then cracks. Thin silver fractures crawling across the surface like veins. The man's eyes narrowed. This was not in the contract. Grandpa straightened his back, his voice steady. "But I never signed anything. It was a handshake. And you didn't count on legacy." "What are you doing?" I asked. "Breaking the cycle." Daniel turned to me. "It's the bloodline. The deal only works if the descendants remain unaware. But now that you know," the man snarled, "she wasn't supposed to see." "But I did," I said. "I see all of it now." Grandpa placed his hand on the mirror. It didn't reflect his face anymore. It showed something darker, twisted shapes, whispers. I paid the price. I gave my time. But now my family is free. With one final breath, he pushed his hand through the glass. And it swallowed him whole. The mirror exploded into light. The barn groaned. Dust and wind filled the space. And then, silence. The man in black was gone. Where he stood, only the old wooden chair remained. Grandpa's blanket rested on it, folded perfectly. Daniel collapsed to his knees. I knelt beside him. "He did it," I whispered. "He really did it." Outside, the music had stopped, but people hadn't moved. It was as if time had paused outside that barn. Until now. We walked out into the light. I held Grandpa's blanket against my chest like a shield. "He saved us," I said. Daniel nodded. "And now it's our turn." To do what? To live different. No more loans, no more secrets. No more pretending wealth is worth more than peace. And for the first time in my life, I believed him. The days that followed felt hollow. No one asked what happened in the barn. Not out loud, but they all knew. Something shifted that day, not just in the family, but in the air itself. Grandpa was declared missing. The police took a report. We showed them a picture. But they just scratched their heads and told us to wait. They wouldn't find him. Not in any way they'd understand. Back at the house, I sat in his room, touching the spines of old books, breathing in the smell of dust and pipe tobacco. A Bible sat open on his nightstand. Its pages fluttered even with no wind. Daniel and I talked late into the nights. He confessed everything. The loan he once took to start his first investment firm, the promises he made, the freedom he thought he bought, and the weight he carried every day since. "We were rich for 5 years," he said, "but I was never at peace." I took his hand. "Then maybe now's our chance." We sold the second car, paid off every debt, canceled all 5 credit cards, and we left the city. Bought a small place in the hills, nothing fancy, just enough. People thought we were crazy, walking away from what they called security, but they didn't know what we'd seen. Olivia came to visit once. She asked if I thought Grandpa was in heaven. I smiled softly. "I think he went where he needed to go." And in my heart, I heard his voice again. Peace doesn't come from money. It comes when you finally stop running. I wasn't running anymore. Months passed, life slowed down in the best way. I started baking again, real bread, not the boxed kind. Daniel built a garden from scratch. We stopped checking the news every hour. We even started going to the little chapel down the road. Just the 2 of us, sitting in the back pew, holding hands like we were 20 again. I thought I'd be haunted by the mirror, by the man in black, but instead, I was haunted by Grandpa's courage. He gave everything so we could have a second chance. Daniel took up woodworking, made a bench under the old oak tree. We carved Grandpa's name into it, not as a grave, but as a reminder. Every Sunday, we'd sit there with coffee in hand and listen to the wind. One morning, a letter arrived. No return address? Inside was a single slip of paper, yellowed and thin. It read, "Time is the only currency that matters. Spend it wisely." Daniel stared at it for a long time. "Do you think he's watching?" he asked. I nodded. I think he always was. We never saw the man in black again. But sometimes, just before dawn, I catch a glimpse in the mirror by the front door. Not of something evil, but of Grandpa. Smiling, at peace. We'd lost so much chasing things that were never ours to keep. Money, image, power. Now we were finally learning what wealth really meant. Not in banks, not in loans, but in quiet mornings, honest work, and love rebuilt. One evening, about a year after Grandpa's birthday, we received a visitor. A woman, mid-30s, dark coat, hair tied back, sharp eyes. She didn't smile. "I'm looking for Harold," she said. My heart skipped. That was my grandfather's name. She stepped closer. He owed something, and now the debt has shifted. Daniel stood beside me. We ended all that. He paid the price. She pulled out a folder, thick, bound in leather. These deals don't end. They evolve. I took the folder and flipped through it. Pages filled with names, dates, signatures, mine included. But I'd never signed anything, except my breath caught. A registration form for a small loan we'd taken after the move. A new water heater, $500. I hadn't even thought about it. Signed online, no paperwork. Daniel's face turned pale. This can't be happening again. It's not a loan, the woman said. It's a test, and you failed. No, I said, stepping back. You don't get to do this. The mirror broke, she said. But the man didn't. She handed me a card. Black, blank. Except for one line in silver ink. You looked. Now it sees you. I dropped it. It didn't hit the ground. It vanished. Daniel took my hand. We're not going back to that world. The woman stared for a moment longer, then turned and walked into the woods, disappearing between the trees. We stood there, frozen. Two people trying to rebuild, and the past refusing to stay buried. But I knew this time would be different. We wouldn't run. We would fight. And this time, we were ready. The card came back the next morning, sitting on the kitchen table, where we had just prayed over breakfast. This time, the silver ink pulsed like a heartbeat. Daniel took it and threw it into the fireplace. Flames roared. The card didn't burn. Instead, the flames turned blue, cold. The house trembled. And then, the mirror by the front door cracked down the center. Daniel grabbed my hand. It's now. We ran to the old bench under the oak, the safest place we knew, but the world around us shifted. Trees blurred. The wind howled without moving the leaves. And then, he appeared. The man in black. Just like that first time. No smile this time. Just eyes like glass. You don't get to deny what was accepted. I never accepted anything, I said. He nodded toward Daniel, but he did. Twice? Daniel stepped forward. Then take me. No, I shouted. The man moved closer. Daniel turned to me. Claire, I have to end this. I shook my head, tears falling. Not again. He kissed my forehead, whispered in my ear, faith isn't faith if you don't walk into the fire. Then he faced the man. I surrender, but only me. No legacy, no ties. The man tilted his head. You would give your life for love. Daniel smiled. That's what it's worth. And just like that, he vanished. No light, no sound, just gone. I collapsed to the ground, sobbing, and then the mirror shattered completely, echoing like a thunderclap through the hills. The air stilled. The card turned to ash, and peace returned. Real peace. But the cost was everything.